Today we will be looking at something that's a little sneaky, psychologically speaking. Something that's hiding in each of our lives. Something that all of us will inevitably have to battle as we work on improving our mental health. It could be hiding in a lot of different places in our life. The goal here is by the end of this video to identify an area of your life where it's hiding so you can obliterate it, just like putting it in, say, a blender or a microwave. Our intersection point between mental health and the movies today comes directly from author, researcher Brené Brown.
So Gremlins, the term is from the horror comedy, Steven Spielberg's horror comedy from the 80s, Gremlins. And if you'll remember, the Gremlins were these little creatures that were terrible looking and scary and just wreaked havoc wherever they went. And the reason I love that metaphor is, to me, it's a great metaphor for the shame tapes. The stuff that plays through our mind. You know, in my circle of friends, we call it the Gremlins.
A shame gremlin, then, is a topic or a belief about ourselves just out of conscious awareness around which we have a lot of shame. And gremlin-like is wreaking havoc with our mental health.
What the hell is that?
When shame is driving us, nothing good is going to come of it. Let me show you what I mean. In her book, I Thought It Was Just Me, Brown relates an experience where a mother describes how a specific and very sneaky shame gremlin was sabotaging her life. I'll read you her words. Jillian had been enjoying an unusually relaxing Saturday with her 2 kids and her husband, Scott. Jillian and Scott were sitting on the patio while her kids played in the backyard. She was going through this week's mail when she came across a birthday invitation addressed to her 5-year-old. As she started reading, she was overcome with emotion. Emotions that she described as a terrible combination of fear, anxiety, and anger. She described her reactions to the emotional flooding. She said, "I swear, out of nowhere, I stood up and started yelling at my kids for being too loud and tearing into my husband for keeping the garage so messy. I went to the house and slammed my bedroom door." Scott followed her into the house and stood outside the door, jiggling the lock doorknob. She told me, he just kept saying, "Jillian, what is wrong with you? Have you lost your freaking mind?" When I asked Jillian what had triggered the emotional flood, she said, "I really didn't know for days. I kept thinking I was going crazy because it wasn't the first time. I finally figured out that the invitation was for a pool party, and it said that the parents have to swim with their kids." Julie explained that she had terrible shame about being in a swimsuit in front of the perfect skinny moms. She said, "Sometimes when I feel ashamed, I get fearful and I just go nuts. I feel so lost, I don't even know what's happening." As Jillian and I continued to talk about her reaction to the birthday invitation and her fear of being in a swimsuit in front of the perfect moms, she explained how she had always been uncomfortable with her body. But since she had gained weight after her pregnancy, she had become very self-conscious. When I asked her to tell me more about motherhood and body image, she began to shake her head and said, "I can't believe it." She explained that she had flipped through a fashion magazine while she was waiting to get a haircut, and there was a big spread featuring supermodels on the beach with their kids. She started reading it, and one of the models was quoted as saying, "Just because I'm a mom doesn't mean I can let myself go. Kids don't want frumpy, fat mothers. My kids are proud of how I look." Jillian looked surprised as she told me about the magazine. I didn't even realize how that has stuck with me. Like Jillian, many of us are unconsciously activated by our shame. In fact, as a therapist that works a lot with trauma, I'd say the traumatic effect of shame is an often overlooked source of our current mental health concerns. It's important to know we all have shame tapes. We all have shame gremlins. They hide deep inside us, just waiting to come out. And being able to identify and track how this happens to us can give us more power in our daily lives. After all, it's easier to fight a gremlin out in the open, identified and where we can see it, rather than one out of sight hiding in a Christmas tree. So how do we start recognizing our own personalized shame gremlins? Let me get you started with 2 quick principles. First, we seek to understand what shame is. Brené Brown defines shame as an intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. It's the belief that because of who we are unworthy of connection. Second, we learn to recognize how we feel, how our body is reacting when we are in shame. We can take note of sudden spikes of unpleasant emotions such as anger, sadness, and fear. Although not always, these emotions can be manifestations that we are in shame because shame hides in our limbic system, the same part of our brain responsible for our fight, flight, and freeze responses. It helps to remember that shame shows up around things we feel threaten our sense of connection and belonging. We can ask ourselves, what are my prerequisites for worthiness? What makes me feel unworthy to belong with others? What makes it difficult to feel like I fit in? Those things that come to mind are our shame gremlins. As we start to identify our personal gremlins, we can then start to battle them appropriately so they don't control us. We can start by bringing the gremlin into the light and by discussing it in a safe place. Just the very act of identifying we're in shame, naming it, being able to speak about it with a person we trust, starts to lessen shame's influence in our lives. So sit with a friend or your therapist and let them ask you, what's the gremlin here? Identify it, drag it into the light. Gremlins hate the light. So next time you find yourself reacting with strong, unpleasant emotions, or next time you start to feel like you don't belong or are less than, take a look inside. Something in your past or present might be triggering your sense of unworthiness. You might just be dealing with a shame gremlin. Like this video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss future mental health thoughts and reminders. And if you're interested in an exploration of how shame gremlins show up in our relationships, check out this episode here. Or if you just want to look at other mental health topics in the series, click here.